Good evening. Nicole Carr is an investigative reporter for Channel 2 Action News. She joined WSB-TV in 2016 and has since been honored with 3 Southeast Regional Emmy Awards. That includes a 2020 Emmy for Best Investigative Reporter. She came to Atlanta from WTVD in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she served as a federal Fort Bragg reporter and a fill-in anchor. Covering her military hometown was a fitting assignment, as Nicole grew up an Army brat. Her family made 10 moves before she turned 16, living everywhere from Alaska to Panama. Nicole began her journalism career in 2005 and also reported in stations in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Nashville, Tennessee. In 2012, Nicole was awarded a reporting fellowship through the International Center for Journalists. From Beijing, she pitched and produced a series revolving around North Carolina furniture and agricultural trade with China. Nicole is a proud graduate of Winston-Salem State University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in mass communications. She went on to Syracuse University, where she earned a master's of science in broadcast journalism. While journalism is her passion, Nicole's most important work is at home as a wife and a mother of 3 beautiful children. She also enjoys books, travel. She works as an adjunct professor in anything supporting military families and historically black colleges and universities. That is her passion. Thank you, Nicole Carr. Welcome to Future Focus Now.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be with you.
I am so glad to have you. I was on Twitter recently and I saw where you had won these Emmys, and I reached out to you and I said, Nicole, can you come on the show? And you said, yes, I'll do it. You hit me right back. I'm so excited. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be with you, my family.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how are you? We began this show. This is a landmark show for us. This is episode number 20. This is the 20th Future Focus show. So we're glad to have you. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I think everyone is making it the best, that we know how. And it's what a year.
Yeah, absolutely. What a year. How's the family?
Great. Noah is 10 months old. And so I came off maternity leave and went into a pandemic, but we'll get. And the girls are in virtual school, Kendall and London. They are 9 and 6, and Tylee's doing good. And HBCU game day, they're still producing good content, and we're on a roll in this house in this time. And so missing our family in North Carolina, right. Not getting visits in, but we're doing okay.
Well, we're so glad to have you. It's an opportunity to have a conversation about a number of things. We got to get through your time at Winston-Salem State University. I want to talk a little bit about also your time there and mass communication and journalism. So many great folks have come out of that program. Get a chance to talk about that as well. But also some of the amazing things that you've done. Really want to hit on some of the things you've done. Really interested in the work and your reporting from China. But before we begin anything, tell me about this Emmy. And when did you find out, and do you have it, and can you show it?
So I have 2 in the background. I don't, if you can see them right here behind me.
I see them. No, I see them.
You see the third one's in the mail, so hopefully the Postal Service will get it here.
Right.
But yeah, I found out when you all found out when I was tweeting. We had the virtual ceremony that night, so 2 Saturdays ago, right. And it was for work in 2019. So it was funny looking at that work pop up because we're in such a different world now. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is what we were covering before, COVID. And I'm really proud of this one because there was tough competition in that category. And I'm at my best when I can dig in and do investigative work. I've kind of started coming into my own, I think, with that. And so I'm proud of that one. And all of the work was done when I was really, really pregnant.
Right. No, I've seen some videos of you, some pictures of you when you were doing the work. But I mean, tell us about how does this process work in terms of winning an Emmy, and what does it mean in your industry to win an Emmy?
So it's really like the statue. It's really the gold standard, I think, for our industry. You have peer judges from across the country, but you have to have a certain amount of experience to judge, and they work that out when they're figuring that out. But I think my first one was for live reporting, and you're like blowing around in the hurricanes and going around storm damage and all of that. And I started investigative work here in Atlanta, and it is my chance to go beyond that quick hit in the daily news and to go deeper into some subjects and hopefully expose something for the better good. I think truth is light. And a lot of people, they joke, they say, oh, they don't want to see Nicole Carr coming. And I don't think I'm an abrasive, in your face kind of person, but I do like to get to the truth and help people. And so in that entry, it was a compilation of work of consumer investigations that got people their money back, open insurance fraud investigations. It got some justice for everyday folks. And so I see that as a role that we play, and I was happy to do that.
Yeah. But when I think about, and a lot of people think about investigative journalism, it sounds like it's a little bit undercover. It has a feel to me of being a little bit dangerous. And so I'm wondering, what are the processes involved in one taking on something like insurance fraud? How does that begin? And then how do you put your team together, or you're thinking about how you dig into that area?
Well, I'll tell you one of the stories on that reel. It started out with a woman coming to the Clark Howard consumer line, which is based in WSB's newsroom. Clark Howard is one of our folks. And the consumer action line got a call from a lady who had been billed $10,000 for a DNA test she did not authorize. She didn't know where it came from. The insurance company's after her. She's going to the doctor, can't get her money back. She's like, where did this charge come from? I never took this test. I didn't think I was being swabbed for this. She was vulnerable. You ask yourself, how do you not know you're being swabbed for DNA, right? How do you get swabbed and not know what it's for? And she would not mind me sharing this. I say this, I don't take it lightly. She was in a mental health facility. And so she was a part of a vulnerable population.
Sure.
And she did what the doctor told her she needed to do that day. Whether she understood what it was for or not, that's neither here nor there. But here she is, footing a $10,000 bill. One, a swab test doesn't cost $10,000. Two, you definitely authorize it when you do that. And three, we know there had been some scams across the country that involved folks in nursing homes who were being swabbed, but that we had some Medicare, Medicaid fraud going on with that, where these labs would get money. So we didn't know what we were dealing with beyond the complaint. But the investigative reporting is kind of like connecting the dots. So we start watching the doctor's office. We start noticing that a lot of lab coats are in and out of his office. The doctor is never there. That particular lab is always there. I started plugging folks into federal databases and finding, the feds had their eyes on this lab as well. And, just over months, we started saying, okay, this really isn't right. The lab had a PR representation that suddenly dropped off when we asked certain questions. So I can't, the process is just like really connecting dots. And anyway, we got some paperwork and showed where this woman's signature had been forged, and it looked just like the doctor's signature. Her name was spelled wrong, so we know she didn't sign her name. And so, you know, as you get records, as you talk to people, as you keep an eye on places, you start piecing some things together. So over 2 months, we were able to show she did not authorize it. That lab had been working with patients through that doctor's office. The doctor never wanted to be seen. The feds came after them. When we went knocking, they started locking doors, closing up things. Long story short, they're in federal court now and open to a state investigation for this to see if they had scammed a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, this has to be some incredible, rewarding work, because you're helping folks. You talked about our most vulnerable, and oftentimes we see so many parts of our society prey on those individuals, insurance companies, and the like. And so to be in that space, I can imagine is extremely rewarding. I'm interested in how you decide what cases you take on, you know, because I can imagine there are tons of cases that come your way and people want you to investigate, you know, this and that. I think about 60 Minutes. I wonder how 60 Minutes, you know, gets to decide which areas that they go into. Is there a framework in which you operate within, or the station operates within, that determines what direction you might go?
I think this is the part that really bothers me, and I've had trouble dealing with it during the pandemic, because I think we're working in this, you know, this home space and you're thinking differently. But as I've tried to help people with unemployment problems, I just know we can't help everyone. There's just no way. And so it's a different process. We meet to talk about ideas. Generally, we're looking for something that hasn't been, that's a major ongoing problem, or something that hasn't been revealed yet. Sometimes we'll do follow-ups, but I'm still getting follow-ups from 6 weeks ago when we looked at unemployment fraud, and people saying, this is happening to me too, and there's just no way to go back and keep doing that story. It's like, you got to expose it, hopefully try to get to a solution and move on. And there's no rhyme or reason to choosing what we're dealing with. And sometimes, look, the national news will kind of dictate what we do on a local level. We just saw the CDC putting this moratorium on evictions that drew our attention back to evictions. Unemployment is a problem every day. Vaccinations and trials, test delays, we had run into that. The moment really kind of dictates the story, if that makes any sense. And I think the toughest part of it is knowing that you won't get to everyone on a tip line, or everyone who calls in or emails you. And it's not a good feeling, because you want to help people.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and you mentioned at the top, Nicole, that people will see you and say, "Here comes Nicole Carr." I'm curious as to what your family, your parents, and when you're at Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'm curious as how you're received. Are people looking over their shoulder and thinking maybe?
No, I will say I am the daughter of a ex-special ops soldier. So I don't think I'm scary. I'm like, if y'all want to be scared, you talk about some stuff my dad used to do. But no, I had someone joking online the other day. They said, if Nicole Carr rolls up on you with that sugary, sweet Southern voice and says, "How you doing? Get your bail money." And I said, that's how you guys. I said, I am not. I just ask a question. And I told somebody one time, I don't think people are scared of me. I think sometimes we are all scared or apprehensive about the truth.
Right.
And I think that's all of us. My rule of thumb is, if I'm going to talk about you on TV, you're going to hear from me. And you'll hear from me in plenty of time. And I think people should be extended grace. a lot of times when we get to the point of confrontations and stuff, we have to process in the story that was not our first attempt, to get an answer. You don't just go running up on people and with these gotcha moments that are good for TV. But I think it's important to let people know, like, these are the links we went through to contact this person, get a fair response. It's, and then, people start talking and maybe the story is not what you thought it was.
Sure.
You're not always right going into it. And I try to think, and I coming from a position where people who I love with all my heart have been in bad situations, who have had to take ownership for bad choices. I think about what grace I would want extended to me if I were the subject of the story. And so I think if you kind of let that guide you a little bit. And then some people out there just, they're scamming and they know it. Like, so, and you gotta go.
Gotta go. And I worry about this world in terms of scams. And I really worry about the elderly. And almost every single time something happens, the elderly are preyed upon by so many. So look, I appreciate the work that you're doing. I mean, it's hard work. I mean, congratulations. I know it's fulfilling in terms of that. Take me back a little bit in terms of, you deciding to go to college. How did you decide to attend Winston-Salem State University?
Oh, I think Winston-Salem State chose me. And my mom is class of 78. So, and my dad went to A&T, class of 80. And so when we were traveling around the country and stuff, but my brother and I would always get a summer visit to the campuses, and we would go to the bookstore and get like school supplies. And we always had exposure to the Black college experience, and especially to our parents, their campuses. And when I went to visit my senior year, it just felt right. I don't know if that was like a part of my mother's spirit. And she's with us, she's not gone, but just, I don't know if I was, like picking up where she left off. It just felt right. I think we have one of the most beautiful campuses, the best people. Like, I almost get emotional. I just love Winston-Salem State, and I think it chose me. So
well, that's nice. I'm glad we are glad that it chose you, and we're glad that you are an alum of this great university. How did you get involved in journalism, and what kinds of things did you do when you were on campus?
So I went straight to the News Argus office as soon as as
a first year student.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were you always interested in writing and journalism and things of that nature?
I was a high school. Well, the first article I wrote was on a member of the Little Rock Nine when I was in 8th grade in Panama. He came to visit and speak to us in the cafeteria / gym. And Terrence Roberts, and my teacher asked me to write about him. And it was on from there. And so my parents, they dipped into their retirement and sent me to England for a summer for a Cambridge experience. So I left Panama between 9th and 10th grade and studied in England for a summer. And it was for journalism, and came back, was on the high school paper, editor-in-chief of my high school paper in Fayetteville. And so when I got on campus, I wanted to go straight to the News Argus and started working with some upperclassmen there. And we'd spend, as long as that building was unlocked, like we were in there laying out pages. And I know they have a different method. It's a digital world now too, but it was everything. And then my last year, because I graduated a year early, my last year, I took one of Tali's classes, and no, we were not a thing when I was.
Well, I'm glad you put that out. But I wasn't even going to ask that. I wasn't going there.
Well, I had a couple of uncles ask at the night before the wedding. So this is what we send y'all to school for? No, it was nothing like that. But he was working. We had few instructors who were working in the industry at the time. And so it was exciting to have someone teaching you who you could actually go and watch later on and say, so at the time he was still in sports, and he had a practicum class in the studio. Miss Bonner would open up the studio and stuff. I said, how do you do this TV thing? Like, I want to see what that's like. And he gave me contact information for someone at Channel 12. And my first TV internship was over at XII. And just went from there and decided to go to Syracuse, and they had a practical program. And
yeah, I mean, but if you think about your the kind of the preparation for your career, I mean, you were primed to go into journalism. Here you are at 13 years old writing stories about the Little Rock Nine, and which is quite impressive when I think about a 13-year-old doing that, but really being primed for that, and then going to Cambridge to study journalism. Now, when I think about Winston-Salem State University, I don't necessarily think about journalism. So to connect the dots for me in terms of how that came about.
Well, Miss Roseborough, Marilyn Roseborough, was one of my professors, and she had spent a short time in television early in her career as a reporter in Charlotte, and we all know Mr. Roseborough, and voice of the
yes.
CIAA. So they, and then Dr. Sadler, who was like, and still checks on me to this day. She had worked in the newspaper industry when she came out of Hampton. And so we had folks who were in the industry at some point. And I think what was key to our development was just what they poured into us in terms of, here are the possibilities. Like, you can do anything. You can do anything. And if you have an idea, let's figure out how to pull it off on campus. A show, we had like Ram TV, and there were just no limits. They were so encouraging. And so I'll give you an example. Dr. Sadler, when we joined NABJ student chapter and went to a short course at A&T one year, Dr. Sadler paid for hotel rooms so we wouldn't have to drive back and forth between Greensboro and Winston, just so we could stay up all night working on scripts. Like, when I saw Felicia Rashad talking about Chadwick Boseman, and
I saw you tweeted about that.
That took me back to Dr. Sadler. And I said, oh, this is what our schools, this is what they pour into us. And so he had the talent, he had the potential, and here's a little something to help you get to that next step. And I'm going to pour it. Like, we didn't ask her for anything. She just didn't even think about it. She said, here's your reservation. Don't worry about getting back to campus, back and forth. And so what do? We stay up all night in the studio, and we're writing stuff. It was a weight off of our shoulders to pursue our dream, whatever we wanted to pursue. And so I think it just, the love and the encouragement, and hey, you can do this.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that's so much a part of what goes on at Winston-Salem State University. We, now we have this tagline, Nicole, be the next, that you get to fill in whatever that is. And so that's almost, you think about the history and the tradition that we have here at Winston-Salem State. I appreciate that. Take me through, and I think this is a nice segue into, there are so many amazing folks who come out of Winston-Salem State University that are in mass communications, journalism, reporting, DJing. We talk about, Valanda Calloway, Tim Pullian, Stephen Gaither, Nicole Carr, Stephen A. Smith. And I can go and I can list maybe 10 DJs who are out there doing their thing at a very high level. Can you help me understand the culture that produced all of this?
Oh, I think we all know each other as well. And I think the last person helped the next person. I think there is always some reaching back, and this is, I mean, even in our professional careers, and without getting too personal, I'll say, you know, Tim and I were talking recently. He just called me up and we hadn't talked in forever. And it was like, hey man, this is going on. What do you think? I'm like, you know, here's what it is. This is what I think. This is what I do. So there's a structure, there's a support system there that is unmatched. I can remember meeting Belonda when I was in school, and I remember watching her on TV, you know, in high school and college, and I was like, that's it. Like, can do it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but there's something special about Winston. I can't, it's hard to put into words. And I can remember my mom talking like this, like, right. This is a place that reared me. And I haven't been back to campus in a few years, but I can remember arriving on campus and some of the same people she knew from school were there. So Dr. Little at the time, I believe they were in school at the same time. And so Mr. Cumbo was in housing and had come up with my mom. And so I also felt like I was in a safe space. Mm-hmm. Like somebody was always going to, you know, look out for you, make sure, hey, BB, I have your daughter. Hey, Mary, you know, it's gonna be okay. So I think you're just worry-free when it comes to the culture of the people. We just have good people. Yeah. And that allows you to do what you need to do.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I think you're right. It is about carrying on a rich history. And I was thinking about that today. I just did a video. Next Monday is our 128th birthday. 1892. We'll celebrate it next Monday, and that's special. But it begins with the foundation from our founder, Simon Green Atkins, and the kind of education that he wanted to make sure that each and every student has. And we've carried on that. And I see that in the students that graduate from Winston-Salem State University. But I'm really very much appreciative of the work that has come out of our communication and journalism. You are really a testament to that. And so we thank you for that. When you were on campus, Nicole, were there special projects or reporting that you did when you were on campus?
I'm laughing because talking about investigative reporting, I think I made some folks mad. I got a bootleg man kicked off campus. I think my freshman or sophomore year.
That's when it started. That's when the investigative journalism started, right there.
I think a lot of people didn't appreciate that article.
That's how you make your living. You got the bootlegger kicked off campus.
right there near where the clock tower now is. You know, that was just an open road between. I stayed in Atkins Hall my first year, and then moved over to Rams Commons when it opened up. But yeah, there was that. There was. I can remember BET merging with, or Viacom buying BET at the time. And it was a big deal. Like, where is our Black-owned media? What does this mean for the media landscape? Or I can remember writing on that. We had a former student, an alum who died on 9/11. And I can remember going to the library to research her and talk about her flight and what she was doing in life. We started some RAM TV shows. We did some good stuff.
All right.
So, yeah.
And so you're here, you're at Winston-Salem State University, and now you're deciding to go into graduate school. You go to one of the more prestigious journalism schools in the country in Syracuse. Tell us about that.
Well, I didn't think I would get into Syracuse. I don't know why, but I applied to 2 grad programs, University of Maryland, and I thought I'd go back to the DC area and be near my grandmother and that I would get in easily. And then I said, I'm gonna try for Syracuse, and Maryland rejected me. And Syracuse, I came back from spring break at Myrtle Beach, and Syracuse had accepted me. And so my dad was moving out of the Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and he drove down to pack me up and move me to Syracuse. And it was a phenomenal experience. It's a practical program. So when I went for a master's, it wasn't theoretical. It wasn't to learn to teach or to, it was, you go check out cameras, you're on assignments. Our classes were like long form reporting, radio reporting, daily. Then we had a newscast. Then we did a summer in DC and reported for Nexstar owned stations as their Washington correspondents. And it was nonstop, I think July to August. It was a year-long deal, but it was great. It was great. And it was a different class, we'd grown up all over and lived overseas and stuff, accustomed to moving in different spaces with different people. But I went from Winston and my majority school to being one of 3 Black students in the graduate class. And it was a different experience, but I'm so glad I went.
You were there, how long were you there?
So we did July to June in Syracuse and then moved to DC for the Washington program, and you finish in August. So you walk in May, but you actually finish in August. And then by September, I was reporting in Wilmington. I got my first job in Wilmington at the NBC station. And I started the week Hurricane Ophelia came through in 2005. Yep.
You started in Wilmington. I didn't realize that. How long were you in Wilmington?
18 months, because it paid $18,000 a year. Yeah, you can't, you gotta hit and move, get the experience and move, keep the lights on. What is this? My parents said, is that right? With a master's degree? I said, they don't care about a master's. They don't care about it. But you have to start somewhere. So 18.5.
I wasn't prepared for that. Okay, so that's why it lasted 18 months, right?
Oh yeah, it was a 2-year contract. I got out 6 months early and it moved on to Fox 8.
Gotcha. How long were you in Durham? In Raleigh, Durham, but you were at WTVD. Now, WTVD is my station. I mean, that's that's the station that I look. That's where I get my news, my weather, my everything. Because I still have a house in Durham. I go to Durham a lot. I see Tim. Tim is my guy. I have an aunt who says that I look like Tim. And she said, and so I said, no. I said, he could probably be my son. So the next time you talk to Tim, you mention that to him, because I told him that. I told him that story. So how long were you in Durham?
3 years. 3 years. We launched the street level downtown Fayetteville newsroom. So right. I came in and replaced a reporter who had been there decades.
Who did you replace?
Gilbert Bays at the time.
Yes, no, yeah, Gilbert Bays. No, I remember you. I remember your reporting. So what's the time period? What are the
this would be 2013 to 16.
13 to 16. Okay, so I actually had left Durham then, but I would come back occasionally, so that's why I remember seeing you as a reporter.
Yeah, and they had just opened that street level studio on Hay Street, and it was perfect, like close to our parents, and I love covering the military, and it's a good station, good ownership. So I thought we would stay, and then I got a call to interview in Atlanta, and I said, let me go see what this is about. And this is just one of those stations you don't say no to. I said, well, go try. And then, so.
And so what's it like being in a city like Atlanta and being an investigative reporter?
Well, there's material for days.
Right.
You know, there's a lot to cover. There's especially, I mean, I was telling you I was coming from the CDC this evening for the live shots. There is just a wealth of everything here. So
look, Nicole, now you mentioned that you, certainly during this pandemic, you spent a lot of time at home, but in the past 7 months, there's been some incredible things that have happened in the news, and a lot of it in the Atlanta area, whether we're talking about politics or whether we're talking about race relations, your wonderful dynamic mayor, whether we're talking about the governor. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff, going on in Atlanta during this period. How have you been a part of that, and how have you had to deal with that during this period as well?
Well, so we started working from home, I think March 13th. I think it was when the kids, their last day at school. And I didn't come out of the house until May 29th, the day of the protests, the night of the protests. We had been watching, this is following Brooks. No, Rayshard Brooks happened after that. So we had been watching a buildup, as we saw all around the country. And I remember sitting here watching TV and watching the CNN Center that afternoon and seeing that there was clearly something separate from the advertised protest in Centennial Olympic Park that was getting bigger and bigger. And just kind of strapped on shoes and packed a backpack, and we went out, and it was on from there. It seems like it's been nonstop since then. So there was that. Then I mean, COVID just takes you all over the place. And then we lost Congressman Lewis.
Right.
And the next big outing that I had reporting out of the house was heading to Selma. And it was like a no-brainer. They asked, and I asked Tali, I said, are you okay with this? He said, go. And I called my mom. I said, you think I should go? Because I'm thinking about crowds, and it still feels very strange to step out, but it was just like, you gotta go. You gotta go. And it's just been a whirlwind. But yeah, and it seems like a lot of stuff has been centered around Georgia.
Yeah, right. And, so what was it like covering that event, particularly with Congressman Lewis? You went to Selma. You were part of the services. I mean, you reported on the services. What was that like?
that Sunday morning, we drove into Troy. We drove straight into Troy to the university for the first memorial service. And then I remember the mayor there saying something to the effect of the Alabama state troopers in the same agency that had beat him would now carry his body to the state capitol. And he said it much more eloquently, but I remember stopping and just kind of soaking in the moment. And then driving to Selma, when you get to that bridge, it's
Right.
like, it's all, I think of our ancestors and also how recent the history is. I think that's the thing, because I was calling my parents, and I'm trying to, I was telling my mom, I said, I wish you could have been here, like shared this with me. And I'm talking to my dad, and I'm thinking, you all lived this.
Right.
This isn't ancient history. This is, you come into town and you meet the folks who are not big names, who were right there, who were a part of it all, who were a part of the church, a part of the planning. And then you think about the relevancy of what the fight was for, how it is relevant to everything that we're talking about today, that we're dealing with today. And I think about Ecclesiastes, and I say, nothing is new under the sun. But what, and it also struck me that Black journalists came into mainstream newsrooms because of this movement. I was on assignment in Selma, and it wasn't an investigative assignment. It wasn't, but I said, this was my assignment. Like, I was supposed to be here. And I think about the Dorothy Gilliams, when you think about Jim Vance in DC, Ed Bradley, and all of the big names that we knew, when we started coming into newsrooms and the inception of National Association of Black Journalists and the history that's there, we were brought in to carry this assignment because newsrooms didn't know how to cover it or didn't want to send certain people out. And they said, well, you send them out to cover their own people and this new, whatever this is, you know? And I said, okay, I am because you were, in so many ways. I'm here because of you. And so I'm soaking in everything that the ancestors have for me on that bridge.
Yeah. And I thought, the Sunday morning, and I wrote about it a lot, watching that and thinking about, the first time he was there, and now his final resting place, going to his final resting place, to have a ceremony where you actually have him across the bridge, with the horse-drawn carriage and the whole 9 yards, was pretty amazing. I'm wondering, in terms of you personally, you felt that. I know you just talked about having a conversation with your parents who have a different perspective. Have the two of you, your parents and yourself, shared moments around what that was like?
We have, my mother's family is from Bennettsville, South Carolina, and my grandfather, my maternal grandparents I'd never met. They died when my mom was 15, which is part of her story in getting to Winston-Salem State. But my grandfather was a pastor. And I can remember my mom talking about, where the church trips would be, where they couldn't go, how the schools were integrated, what it was like moving to Fayetteville from Bennettsville once her parents died, because it was totally different makeup there because of the military. She moved in with an older sister who was married to a military man. And sometimes, when you start talking about segregation and the schools and water fountains and church trips and what beaches you couldn't go to, it just sounded so ancient growing up.
Right.
Like, that stuff, that doesn't happen anymore. Like, it seems odd that they grew up in that. And as we grow older and you say, wow, that history, it's recent. It's not history.
Right.
And even what drew them to A&T and to Winston, and what was, one of my favorite assignments at Fox 8 was always going to the February 1 celebration at A&T and talking with you can't take for granted the wisdom that surrounds you and how our campus has played integral parts in movements. And I think about that now with our schools of medicine and being in Atlanta and covering Morehouse, right, and the investment. And I mean, literally, there's going to be something life-saving, innovative that comes from these students here on our campuses that will help us get through this time. And I got into some ancestry stuff, and my paternal great-grandfather was a medical student at Howard. He's class in 1925. And I'm reading reading their yearbooks. And he came over from Jamaica and to study, and I'm reading their yearbooks and what they were concerned about, what they were, the pandemic. When you think about coming out in 1918 and the Spanish flu and all of the things that concern them medically, and I'm like, we'll get through this, but boy, what will history say about us?
What will history say? I wish I had a crystal ball to see what it will say about us. You mentioned Black journalists, and I know you probably involved in certain associations where you guys get together and talk. Nicole, what is the state of journalism today? And what is the state, and what are the conversations that you have among yourselves about where we are today in journalism?
I think there's a question around the definition of objectivity. We're in a time where we're reckoning with our country's racial views, our how we're going to move. I don't know if we say move past things, but how we're going to be honest with ourselves about this moment, how we got here, right? So increasingly, there is acceptance of your perspective and what you bring to the table in terms of understanding our communities, right? So now I think this whole idea of I've got to completely remove myself from the story and the situation, start with a clean slate. I'm so objective that it's he said, she said, this and that, and I don't feel anything is the wrong approach.
Right.
You can be fair and objective as humanly possible and bring perspective to a moment. And we desperately need proper context and perspective to understand what's happening around us. And I think it's being seen now more as an asset versus, you're not doing your job right. And I think it opens up a conversation that's always been in play with, do we have proper representation in our newsrooms? Are we covering our communities with the best resources including people and perspective as we can? You're also fighting an era of misinformation that is unlike anything we've grappled with in this country, and it's been a long time coming. And it is because we have so many platforms in which we communicate. Everyone has a voice. People can be nondescript, they can be bots, they can be anything, and they can spread information quickly. And so the basics of journalism, they're still so important because facts matter. facts matter, and
Nicole, we hope that facts matters, but it appears that facts don't matter. And I think a question that I would have is, how do we put ourselves in position where facts do matter? You know, because I think about what you just said, and I think about being able to be objective and being able to tell the story. And so much of being able to tell the story today is our ability to contextualize it in ways that people can appreciate it. And that's hard.
Right, right. And that's taken it doesn't omit it doesn't omit whatever you are or feeling from criticism. I think people people think being critical, thinking critically, and offering facts equates to taking sides, politicizing, and so on and so forth. And that's not the case. I have personally covered a case and may need to follow up to tell the whole story that involved one of our institutions, some stuff that shouldn't have been going on, and to lay it out and lay out what happened, and everyone who was charged in that and admitted guilt, and the fallout from it is not to say I do not like or love my historically Black colleges and universities.
Excellent, you're right.
I think a part of love and truth is accountability. We're all going to face, if you don't face adversity, just live a little longer.
Yep.
Right?
I agree. Right. Yeah.
So
it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. and the definition of your character, or the sum of it, is in how you respond.
Right.
And so facts matter. There's a lot of messaging that guides people in different directions. Maybe they equate facts with opinions or politicizing things. Everything's political. I hate attributing stating a fact to being political.
Right. That's where we find ourselves. We're actually coming up against the clock. So I want to get a couple things for you before you get out. You've had a storied career in journalism. What's next for Nicole Carr?
I have some ideas, but I'm open to wherever God leads me.
Okay. All right, we'll accept that. You don't want to put anything out in the universe. Yeah, so I got that. I am sure that you consider journalism a noble career. So tell folks out there who are interested in going into journalism, give them some advice, tell them what to expect, and how do you prepare for
it? I think you get your basics down. You understand what you have a right to in terms of information, in terms of accessing, getting to the core of truth. I think you need to open yourself up to putting yourself in other people's shoes. I think you can be tough and stand in truth, but have empathy, extend people grace, think about how you would respond to a situation, and don't worry about being liked by everyone. You're not coming to be a social media influencer. You're not coming you're there for the truth. And sometimes it won't be popular, and it's okay. It's okay.
Nicole, when you look around the country and you see all the great reporters going on, who are some of the people that you look at and you say, wow, they're doing just great work? And you might not want to put that out there, but
no. Bill Whitaker, 60 Minutes. Actually, anything 60 Minutes. We have some amazing local reporters that don't have like a national profile, but you get involved in these organizations and see the work of folks uncovering, even in this market. Like I compliment other people, other stations and their work, because it's a calling, and we're competition in a way, but not really. So but 60 Minutes comes to mind,
right?
And Bill Whitaker. I just, man.
Gotcha. I got you. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, thank you so much. It's been great having you on the show. We have to get you back to Winston-Salem State University. You're gonna have to come back next year for homecoming. Now, I'm hoping if you have any magic, or if you have some amazing prayers about getting us back to normal or anywhere close
Rub
to
the
normal,
CDC.
do all of that, because we're anticipating having a major homecoming. To take a year off from a Winston-Salem State University homecoming, I don't know what to expect next year, but you might want to cover that one.
I know, we might have to go live with that. We might.
That's right.
Yes, well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and you all, nothing feels like home more than Winston-Salem State. So
thank you. Well, thank you so much. We know you took time to be here with us tonight, and you got three beautiful babies waiting for you. Hopefully they're asleep. And
yes.
Hopefully they're asleep. You can get a little rest. But anyway, thank you for joining us, and you be well, and we will see you soon. Right?
Thank you. You guys stay healthy.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, and join us next week for another edition of Future Focus Now. Good night, everybody.